Hi, everyone. Welcome back. In the past, I've talked about how leadership is just as much a personal development journey as it is a professional one. So today I want to talk about 3 different areas that aspiring and new leaders can start to build self-awareness around to become more effective leaders. The first area is really understanding your own communication needs and style. Consider, how do you like to receive and deliver news, whether that's positive news, difficult news, feedback, or even requests. How do you like to process information? Are you someone that needs to talk it out, or do you like to process in silence? Are you someone who likes to receive information in advance so you have enough time to think about it prior to a discussion? Or are you someone who maybe needs time after a discussion to process it and then revisit it with your thoughts? Another area to consider is, how does your delivery impact the interpretation or receptivity of the communication? So consider your tone, your cadence, your facial expressions. I highly recommend taking time to really understanding your nonverbal communication as well. It just really makes everything so much smoother when you know yourself, because you can then help reduce misinterpretation and miscommunication. So here's a personal example. I need a lot of silent processing time when it comes to making a decision or giving feedback on something. I really want to make sure that it's meaningful, so I need to take that time to sort through all of the information in order to come to my decision or my conclusion. Sometimes in team meetings or in one-on-one conversations, there would be an uncomfortable amount of silence after someone had just shared a problem with me or asked for feedback on something. And I learned later that this silence was being interpreted by others as disapproval or my frustration with the problem even being brought to me in the first place. Once I became aware of this, I shifted my processing to either verbally name it, like, okay, I just need to take a few moments to process right now, or I would shift my internal processing to be external and would kind of like verbalize what I'm processing aloud, so that way the other person can follow. This honestly made a huge difference in my relationship and communication with other people. And I find that actually the nonverbals are what cause the most miscommunication and misinterpretation. Because as leaders, we're in a position of authority, the people that we're working with will likely be more sensitive to and can overanalyze our communication from our nonverbals to what we're actually saying. Of course, it's important to get to know other people's communication styles and find that middle ground, but it really starts with understanding your own communication style first. The second area to really know about yourself as a leader is your decision-making process and potentially any biases that come with it. So what are situations that make it easier for you or harder for you to make a decision? What makes you feel confident or not confident when it comes to making a decision? What are areas or topics that decision-making comes easily for you versus areas and topics that make it more difficult? And how are you prioritizing decisions? As a leader, there's a range of decisions that you're going to be making throughout the day. There's going to be split-second decisions you need to make, all the way to decisions that are really heavy and complex and going to impact a lot of the key stakeholders in the community, to those day-to-day decisions that may not be the highest priority but still need to be addressed. With the split-second decisions and the highly complex decisions, the more you come across them, you'll be able to improve your skills with making those decisions. And oftentimes with the complex ones, you have a whole team to support you. However, those mid-level day-to-day decisions are actually what set the foundation for a positive school culture. Usually people are more understanding of an imperfect decision when it comes to complex or split-second ones. However, those low to mid-level day-to-day decisions, those are the ones that tend to get circulated around the school and can often reflect the leader's character and also style when it comes to supporting staff, students, and families. By understanding your decision-making process and what you need can help reduce your decision fatigue, which then gives you the energy to give each decision the attention it deserves. So as a personal example, in my first year of assistant principalship, I really struggled with discipline referrals. It was difficult for me to match the consequence with the severity of the situation. Sometimes it was too much or not enough. What I realized is that I tend to misinterpret written information when it comes to tone. So looking at a written referral, it was difficult for me to gauge the severity of the situation from the staff. So for my decision-making process, I really needed to go talk to staff directly and see their nonverbal expressions, as well as hear the tone as they're describing the situation. This helped me be able to gauge the severity of the situation, and then I could give an appropriate consequence that matched it. Once I knew this is something I needed for my own personal decision-making process, I was able to further collaborate with staff and have more rich conversations that eventually led to staff feeling more supported while also humanizing the student and ensuring that the student is getting the best support possible too. The final area to consider is how you are in different interpersonal dynamics and situations. So what situations make you feel safe and what situations make you feel unsafe when you're interacting with others? This is a huge area to think about because there's going to be a lot of situations where you might be personally triggered as an individual, but still have to maintain a professional composure until you can process the situation later. As a leader, the intensity of working with difficult and angry parents is much higher, and so that can be triggering for people. Certain medical emergencies or seeing an ambulance might trigger some negative personal experiences. It could also be along the lines of previous workplace trauma or public speaking. Consider the things that might be brought up when you're interacting with other people. In my first year of assistant principalship, I was working with a district leader who was known to jump to conclusions with limited information and tended to negatively question decisions made by school administrators. Thankfully, once all the information was out there, the district leader would understand the point of view from the administrator and things were easily resolved. But it was always such a battle to get to that level of understanding. In an oversimplified example, there was an irrational parent who was harassing a staff member. I intervened, and among other actions, it got to the point where I told the parent, you need to leave campus and we can revisit the conversation when you're able to treat everyone with respect. Shortly after the parent left, I received a phone call from the district leader who was basically yelling at me saying that I made the wrong decision about having the parent leave campus. In that moment, I was already so exhausted from navigating the situation, and I already have a hard time standing up for myself. And although I know I made the right decision, this district leader kept yelling at me and asking me, what am I going to do? How am I going to fix this with the parent? What am I going to do to discipline the staff member? And completely domineering the conversation without even giving me a chance to talk about what the staff and I experienced on our end and what led to me making that decision. Not only was I emotionally triggered, I was also trying to remain composed and have the wits about me to be able to actively advocate for myself and rebuttal all the incorrect assumptions the district leader had made, having only heard the parent side of the story. Thankfully, I already had a few techniques I could do in the moment that helped regulate my emotions so I could continue the conversation. And eventually we were able to come to a solution that worked out for all of us. I share that example because I think it would have been helpful for me to take some time to think about what are those interpersonal dynamics and situations that might trigger me and come up with different strategies to help myself in the moment. Ultimately, these interpersonal dynamics are going to be tested at a whole new level when you are a leader. So being proactive about understanding your triggers, coming up with strategies can be really helpful in navigating those situations in the future. So those are the 3 areas I recommend that aspiring and new school leaders take some time to build their self-awareness. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you experience the joy of doing something you love today.